Congratulations
Hello.
on your top 8 at the calling with brand new hero Aurora. For anyone that doesn't know who you are, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us about your history with the game.
For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Bartosz Ziemba. I'm a player from Poland. You might remember me from my recent accomplishment of getting to finals of the Pro Tour Amsterdam with Zen. But before that, I managed to also be a finalist of Pro Tour Lille back in 2022 with Briar. So really similar hero to Aurora, but we'll talk about it. I started playing the game in Monarch, so a long time ago, but it took me some time to get into the game and accomplish some greater results. And I'm here to show you the deck we'll be talking today about with Pheano, about the new hero, the new Lightning Runeblade, Aurora.
It's kind of funny. It's like in between the two things that you did well with.
Yes.
This is like almost like a cosplay ninja, but still with the skin of a rune blade.
Yes, it's exactly what I like about Runeblades, but with the mixed in more aggressive side from the ninjas. So the perfect in between.
Why did you bring Aurora to this event? Why did you think that this was the pick for the event? Or did you just want to play it because you just wanted to play your funny new Runeblade?
Well, I really wanted to play Runeblade for that event, as finally the new set with Runeblades came out. I always loved the class, loved the modality of the things you can do with the class. You can build it more offensively, more defensively. You can have high output turns. You can have off turns whenever you set up. Like in Viscera, you could create rune chants. In Briar, you could set channel Mount Heroic up or just create an embodiment and pass the turn to your opponent to then make a big turn to rush them over. And it was similar to, and as in Zen, which was really similar to me to the Runeblade playstyle, just setting up the bigger turns and popping off, as it was said many times during the Pro Tour Amsterdam. I have a really long history with Runeblades. I started playing, my first hero I played in CC was Chain, then follow up with Briar, that came out in the previous Rosetta set, Tales of Aria. I managed to top 64 worlds, win my national championships in Poland, and go to the finals of Lille with her. So I was really hyped up when the new Runeblades came out and they got the talents of Briar. I was mostly looking for Florian at first because he had the CMH, Channel Mount Heroic, and that was one of my favorite cards for a long time. So tried him out, but he was much more defensive, and I really like the aggressive and being the one that dictates the tempo of the game. So I jumped into Aurora after some games. I had a moment with Vincent because of my chain love, but she's not there yet, I believe. But maybe she will get there one day.
No channel not heroic, but we got this funny new channel.
Yeah, I think I could argue with it being even better than Channel Mount Heroic. We'll see how it goes in the future, but the amount of interactions it has, it's insane, and many people will not realize how flexible it is also. But we'll talk about that in a moment.
Why don't we jump into that and talk about some of the big turn? You're talking about your one of your favorite things is you got these big turns that you can set up. What better place to start than with the funny channel?
With the funny channel, yeah. Why it's so good? Well, for starters, it's really good because of its instant trade, like we could say, because with it's not, you can block with it. That's a downside in comparison to Channel Mount Heroic, but you can use it just because of it being an instant as a way to trigger opponent, like an offensive reaction. You can use it to bait out command and conquers in the matchups where they play them. And also because of it being lightning, you can activate your Starfall, insane weapon that Aurora has.
So you're setting this against the command and conquers and then playing it in response. Like, okay, you're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
get the hit trigger.
Just tricking your opponent that you will not be able, you will have to give up your hand to do something about them sending you a command and conquer, but you just play Channel Lightning Valley in response, and they are sad because they thought they would disrupt you, but you have the whole hand ready set up to demolish them next turn. And also because it's an instant, you can set it up even on your first turn during your opponent's turn 0. So it has everything I loved about Channel Mount Heroic. It's flexible and it allows you for a high roll whenever you could need it, or just for the setup against slower matchups to be able to push through their defensive turns.
Do you want to talk about any cards that like work well with it?
Oh, the one that people figured out pretty quickly. If you scroll down, there's Sigil of Suffering, one of
That's
the
a
best
cute
cards
one.
that. Yeah, that's a huge one. Many people, I played it back in Briar. Many people didn't. Not sure why. Because just at the face value, if your opponent isn't running IB, or you just catch them with no mana floating, or only one card in hand that they wanted to arsenal, it's 5 value from one card, and it's a defensive reaction, so it plays really well, because if you use it on your opponent's turn, it's basically as if you've attacked with a go again.
I can answer
But
that one. The reason that you didn't play it back then in specific metas was if you're playing a lot of like aggro-y mirrors, the way that you were winning them wasn't by blocking, it was by being even more offensive than they were. You could lean into that, but like one of the ways that you could play the matchup was just like, I'm not winning on that axia fighting over stuff, so I'm just going to push, push, push. Like the more aggro I can push with my plunder run, the better, essentially.
yeah, that is true. But it was only at I think even then some people had it in their list, and I started playing it after seeing at my nationals. But it's the way I play the aggro decks we have in Flesh and Blood is always leaning somehow into the defensive side, having some defensive countermeasures whenever my opponent would like to disrupt me. I really love having a lot of block on my equipment, which you can see in my list. I'm running Lightning Greaves, Grasp of the Arknight, and Face Purgatory, and have the Addict Carapace in sideboard. Many people I saw were playing a really aggressive combo style Aurora, running Crown of Dominion that doesn't have a block, running Snapdragon Scalers that don't block, that also don't block, and even playing Vexing Quill Hands into some matchups instead of Grasp of the Arknight. So they could go down even to one block on their equipment, and I really don't like that.
What is
It's not.
the if you don't know, what is the point of running the grasp and the royal hat? Like, why would people be playing it? Because it doesn't seem immediately obvious looking at the deck, like saying, "Hey, why would I need a gold?"
It's for the different approach of the deck you can take is being really focused on the Aurora specialization Arc Lightning. It's insanely good card. It's a lightning non-attack that first allows you to have it deal 1 arcane damage each time you go again, and so it deals 1 arcane damage by itself, and also gives your next action you play go again. So it's something that all Runeblades would love to have, dealing arcane damage, so mixing some arcane into your physical damage, so it's much harder to block, and also giving your next attack go again, so something all Runeblades really drive for. Like Visceral playing a lot of Maurian Skies, just to even 9 copies in some versions, just to have that consistency of having additional action to swing with their weapon, or just making wider turns because it's easier to present breakpoints that your opponent will not be able to deal with at the time. And why it's so good with the Crown of Dominion and either Iron Weave that people run is because if you pair it with both either Iron Weave and Crown of Dominion, which are in the maybe board if you scroll down for people to see, you get 2 instances of Go Again that you always have available on your board, because Crown of Dominion gives you a gold token that you can pay 2 mana to draw a card and go again, and Iron Weave gives you exactly 2 resources that you would need. It's really easy to activate either Iron Weave in your Arc Lightning turn, because you will, of course, start with Arc Lightning that is a non-attack, and then follow up with any other attack action that will have Go Again because you played the Arc Lightning, and it goes so on and forth. So your crazy setup turn with Channel Lightning Valley from the previous turn can go up to even 50 damage if you set it up right and your opponent didn't disrupt you. What helps with the insane amounts of damage is Flicker Wisp, the card I play in sideboard, but many people I saw were having in the main board because they believe the really aggressive combo version is the better choice. Flicker Wisp reads that if it's fused with Lightning card, all action card effects you control that deal arcane damage deal 1 more. And it by itself deals arcane damage, but we mainly want to focus on the first part because it works insanely well with Arc Lightning, because it buffs all the instances of Arc Lightning's damage by 1. So if you want a combo turn against defensive deck, or just in your main game plan, if you are playing the high rolly combo list, you play Arc Lightning into Arc Lightning, fuse the Flicker Wisp, and then each time you go again, you will deal 2+2 arcane damage from it because of 2 Arc Lightnings you played previously. So the combo you have of Crown of Dominion and either Iron Weave will deal 8 damage by itself without any additional setup of items from the board. So that's why you can go so high up and your ceiling is really high because of running that equipment.
There's a lot of burst damage that starts on the board for your big combo turn.
Yes. If that's what you focus on, you can really go high on the go against. Also, Snapdragons will help with combo because you have an additional go again on an attack if you draw it randomly from the top, and it doesn't have a go again by itself.
This seems really powerful. Why did you choose to kind of veer away from that a bit and go for a more mid-rangey approach? Using your words, you described it earlier as kind of in our text as like a mid-rangey style.
Yeah. Well, what I was trying to build, because some people during the event said that they just built Aurora like a Lightning Phi would play. So just instead of going with 3 go again, they would go with 4 go again because that's what Aurora's cards are. I built my deck. I jokingly said that I built my deck as a Lightning Briar, so it's more mid-rangey, more setupy, a lot of block on equipment, and having a consistent output and gaining and generating as much value as you can during each turn cycle, not only during your turn. So that was the difference, and that was my mindset building the deck. So that was the main difference between at least what I saw people were playing during the event.
Is there any particular reason that you wanted to go for this style, like as a meta read or anything like that? Like, do you think that version's bad?
I just like the consistency, and I didn't want to rely so heavily on the combo because it was the same with the Briar. Whenever you focused so much on the Channel Mount Heroic, if you didn't draw it, you would just scramble up and not be able to win the game because the card you focus on could not be in the top 20 cards of your deck, and if you played against an other aggro deck, you could just not have time to set it up, or it would be too late. You would have to block with some of your cards. And with the more mid-rangey approach, more defensive approach, you have time. You don't need that card to win the game. You have a lot more time to set up the card, and like play to the best strengths of the card that you would like to focus on during the deck building to gain a lot of value from. So just, and also I thought that my version would be much better in mirrors and against brutes, and I expected a lot of them during the weekend. There were many more enigmas than I thought, so probably having the combo package would help.
Sorry, having what would help?
The combo package could have helped. So the combo package, meaning the either Iron Wave and the Crown of Dominion, to just be able to push the damage through more easily against defensive decks, especially to clear the board that Aurora that Enigma could set up during the games.
We got kind of distracted on the Briar topic with Sigil of Suffering, but it's fine. We're gonna bounce around. You're talking about how Sigil works really well with the channel.
Yeah, because whenever you read the channel, it says that the first time you deal damage to an opposing hero each turn, you draw a card. And why is it crucial? Is because Sigil of Suffering is exactly a card that deals damage during your opponent's turn. So something you would not be able to abuse in many decks. The second part of the Channel Lightning Valley. Here you have a card that's working perfectly with it and allows you to gain even more value, draw even more cards with Channel Lightning Valley. Sometimes some games I was able to draw even 4 cards from the Lightning Valley because I drew a card during my turn that I played. I channeled it, played the Sigil of Suffering during their turn, drew another card.
No more pot of greeds. No more pot of greeds. Draw 4
pot of greed. Lightning pot of greed. Good that they banned the codexes and books because it would be horrendous with the card draw.
Whoa, we still got the codexes.
Oh yeah, sadly. Maybe one day. Another
and also kind of cool with that too is you're getting to essentially cheat like a flow counter on this, where you're like getting the draw on their turn, where normally you're getting on your own turn and then have to deal with a flow counter. So you're getting like 2 draws on a single cycle for only 1 flow counter.
Yeah, you can even, if you will not need to play to have a lightning card play during your turn, for example, for the Starfall trigger to gain +1 and go again, you can just play Valley in their turn and Sigil of Suffering on the same turn, and you still draw a card. So it's similar to what Iyslander did with her Lake Frigid. Yeah, sorry. That she was able to get another turn of value from that, and that was what pushed her through the roof with disruptiveness. And here you can push through with your value engine, the card draw, because you have ways to activate effect of Channel Lightning Valley during your opponent's turn. That's also, I'm not sure if every list was playing it, but that's why I like to have burn up shocks in my list. You can also, if you would ever want to, if you have Channel Lightning Valley in play, just use shock part during your opponent's turn, and if they don't have AB or just they don't have spare mana to AB, you could cycle it for 1 free damage and additional card draw. That's something to keep in mind during the gameplay, that you can do some small stuff like that.
If nothing else too, just like you playing that on your big channel round, it's very hard to actually prevent everything.
Yes, and also you have so many small and big breakpoints because Starfall is always to go again, so you don't want to give up a card to block 2, but now it has an on hit of 4 arcane, so you would like to do it, but then comes 4 go again and you have to give up equipment or defense reactions.
And then it would also draw a card off of this.
Yeah, and all that stuff. You can have so many on-hit effects that would not normally be on the cards because of all the stuff you have in. That's what makes the deck so good and differentiates it from Phi, because Phi was only pure damage deck, and here you have many more on-hit effects and some of the mixed damage that helps to push the damage through much better and makes it harder for your opponent to actually block it all. We could now jump to the equipment when we mentioned Burn Up Shock. And I saw a lot of discussion about first Lightning Greaves and then face Purgatory. So let's go to Lightning Greaves. A lot of people
this seems like a bit of a contentious thing in the community of snaps versus this, and I'm seeing a lot in both directions. And I can understand like the ceiling on this can be pretty ridiculous, but snaps is always snaps. And it's funny. I was talking about this with my buddy Noah Bagelman on the team, and I don't know. Lightning Greaves seems really broken. It's like what's it called? The other Runeblade ones.
Spellbound Creepers.
Spellbound Creepers, where it's like, if all you're doing is like the one, you're paying one for a go again, essentially. But there's so many broken things where you can do with it where you're like, this goes way above what you're just the one go again sometimes. So what are you doing with this?
First, it has one block, and it allows you to cover one more on hit. It's huge. People might not realize it, but it's really huge. It has a free arcane barrier on it, so it's another big thing because you don't have to. Huge. You don't have to give up another slot for your AB. You have and it is an AB that has a really good effect. So what I had in mind before the event, I suspected that there could be many wizards coming in because of the new cards being printed out, and also facing off against Runeblades. What I wanted my deck to have is a really good AB1 piece. That's why I was thinking about Levia for a moment, because her AB hat is insanely good, and you can play it even in matchups that you don't need AB in, because it's just 1 mana, draw one of 3 perfect cards that you want in that turn. One better than the other.
And it's always draw a busted card, basically. Like, it's not just draw like random card off the top of your deck. It's, let me get the pick of the 3 best cards in my deck, and all of them are nuts.
Yeah, exactly. So here it is the same, that you have an insane ability that pairs up really well with all the cards you have in your deck. Is good into mirror, is good into wizards, blocks 1, and that is relevant into all the decks. It allows you to easily cover the Command and Conquer on hit with a free block from your hand and with grasps.
Yeah, I think people like really underestimate the value of like having some random 1-block equipment to mix with their 2-block. Just so you can go like 2, 1, 3. Plus you also like, of course, have the fridge if you just want to throw everything in front of a 6. But and like the 2-block equipment is also great for that, being able to, what we call it, like when we're playing, is breaking down your equipment. What if we make that play where we block with a 2, we block with a 1, we block with a 3 from hand? Well, we still have another 2 in play. Now that we've broken down our grasp to 1, we can now do that again with our face if we need to.
Exactly, yeah. that was what I was doing in most of the games if I was scared of CNC. Just blocking first with Grasp and Greaves, then I had face Purgatory and Grasps if I ever needed. If we are talking about, let's finish the Greaves because we are jumping so much.
No, it's fine. I'm writing some notes. We can jump around.
Okay. But when it comes to jumping around, what Lightning Greaves are insane with is bouncing and jumping around with Gone in a Flash.
This card is messed up.
One of the new Lightning cards is an endless arrow, but you don't actually need to hit with it. And with the Lightning Greaves, if you have instants in your hand, you can bounce it back as many instants you have in your hand. So insane turns can come out of that small combo that is just a random instant card that you have in your hand. Lightning Greaves that you just need to pay 1 for, and Tunic is there. I run more blues to be able to do that. And just playing Gone in a Flash a few times during your turn, you can generate so much value. And that's why also Sigil of Solace is in that list. That might surprise some people. More copies of Electrostatic Discharge, but going backwards, giving you life instead of dealing damage to your opponent. But the interaction with Gone in a Flash is so insanely good and generates so much pressure if you set it up right. It's just that good that you want to run it.
Even if you don't have the boots up, that's still a 2-card 11?
To card 11 if you have the lightning token from the previous turn, yeah, easy.
Well, like, let's say you block with the other cards, or like you don't, like, you just play the Gone in a Flash, you play the Sigil, you get back the Gone in a Flash, you set the Gone in a Flash. 2-card 11.
Still 11 value from 2 cards, yeah. It's something
like,
I think.
And you can go even further beyond. And you can go crazier, but like, just face value those 2 cards by themselves.
By themselves, they are insane, and with addition of the Greaves, you can go more and more. If you watch the stream against my game against Pablo, I broke the Greaves on turn 2 or 3, I believe, and was able to clear the board of his auras because of that small interaction. And I was able to play Gone in a Flash that turn 3 or 4 times. And without Greaves, I would just be doomed to fail. So that's what Lightning Greaves are for. So that's one controversial pick in the deck. We can go now to the face Purgatory. That is the second.
I just want to finish on Gone in a Flash real quick.
Okay.
Do you want to explain what ones do and don't work with it real quick? Because I think some of them might not be obvious where you think that it works really well with it. Because, like, we mentioned this. We got Electrostatic, we got Sigil, but we also have Lightning Press in the deck. We've got the Channel Lightning Valley. We got, what is it? Blink.
And the Blink.
We got
Somersault, and you could even use Burn Up Shock with that. So that's an additional benefit of Burn Up Shock. So because of Going in a Flash wording, if you would ever want to play it, you need to, for it to both gain go, if you want to gain go again from it and get it back to your hand after you've actually dealt damage, you have to do all of that in resolution step. So that's the step after offensive and defensive reactions, and after the damage is calculated already. So Sigil of Solace and Electrostatic Discharge work all the time, and Blink, of course. But as for the other cards, if you play Lightning Press during resolution step, the damage was already dealt, so you will not get +3 from the Lightning Press. And as for the Channel Lightning Valley, because it specifies that you draw a card only when you deal the damage for the first time during each turn. If that Gone in a Flash wasn't fully blocked and any damage leaked through, you will not get the card draw from the Channel Lightning Valley. So that's something to.
Or if you deal damage again afterwards. Like, it's too late to draw off of this damage, and if you play it afterwards and do damage again, that's not the first time you've dealt damage.
That's not the first time. Yeah, exactly. And
also, you don't want to Gone in a Flash Lightning Press for doing the damage, because then you'll just fizzle your Gone in a Flash, deal no damage.
Yes, and also if you read Gone in a Flash closely, it says that its ability triggers only for that with the first time you play. The next time you play an instant card is Chain Link, so it only works for the first instant. So you can't Lightning Press and then try to bounce it back, because you already had the trigger of Gone in a Flash going back to your hand if you wanted it to. So that's something to keep in mind, to not want to both Lightning Press and then get it back to your hand, because you will not be able to do that because of the wording.
Makes sense. So a little bit of a tricky card.
Yeah, it's insanely tricky, but it's because of that it's insanely fun to play with it, and the lines you can have are yes, so many ways to use that card in the game.
So basically, you're trying to use the Lightning Greaves instead of the Snaps because of the ceiling that it provides you?
Exactly. Because of additional blues I have in my deck, I much more often will have an embodiment of lightning in play. And because whenever I play a lightning card, I will just swing the sword and create an embodiment. I don't need Snapdragons that often to have a functional hand and functional turn. So that's something so because of that, it's easier for me to play Lightning Greaves instead of Snapdragons, because my consistency don't dwindle that much, and I have a high roll option, like the big pop-up turn option included in my equipment. That's also really good and really flexible into many matchups.
Oh, I guess actually added benefit thing to the pop off turn is this also does make your arc lightnings a bit better if you happen to draw a bunch of instants on the turn that you want to do that.
Yes, exactly. Because it doesn't say that your instance give you an action point. It says that your instance get go again. It also works with arc lightning, as you just said. So we can have an arc lightning gone in a flash 3 or 4 instance turn, and you will deal immense amount of arcane and physical damage.
Alrighty, jumping into the rest of the armor, we got grasp. Anything you want to say on that? Pretty straightforward equipment.
Yeah, just one of the best equipment in the game. Just free block allows you to create a rune chant that's relevant sometimes. With rune chant, you can trigger the channel lightning value also. So if your opponent doesn't have AB, you just pay 2 mana for 1 damage, and you are sure you will draw a card from channel lightning valley this turn. Also, because you have something to pitch for, it's easier to keep channel lightning valley up for more than 1 or 2 turns. You can go up to even 3 counters easily in the slower matchups. So that's something to keep in mind.
And then face Purgatory. This is one that not everyone's playing because it seems like it's a little difficult to like actually get the effect off of it. Because for non-attacks, we've got Electrify, which we're gonna get back to in a second. That's an interesting one. Sizzle, Arc Lightning, but ideally don't want to block with that, I imagine.
Burn up
shock and Flicker Wisp. Let's get into this one. Card's messed up, but
yeah, card is broken if you can trigger it. Well, it's sometimes hard to trigger it, but just the same philosophy as with Lightning Greaves, because the ceiling of that equipment is so high, and the opportunity cost is that you will not have a free exchange from Crown of Providence, or you will not be able to get off from one of the Command and Conquers that your opponent could play into you. I feel it's worth it for the added benefit of it being able to disrupt your opponent and your opponent having to play around it. Because sometimes if they don't, and you actually got both attack and non-attack that you would want to block with, you can generate immense amounts of value and just stop their turn in the tracks.
So you're also getting some value off of it by just scare target opponent.
Yes. It's like a calling flashback in a sense, because if your opponent doesn't respect it, you can catch them off guard, and they will just like have 1 card in hand at the end that they wanted to arsenal. You discard it, and they just don't have a great arsenal that they wanted. You can disrupt them in the middle of their turn, because if they attack you with a big attack, for example, if you are playing against brutes and they have a big blood rush below turn, if you just block one of their attacks, even claw with that, it's possible that they will just pass the turn because they didn't expect you to just discard one of their cards. Even in mirrors, because you have electrostatic discharge, and sometimes you just follow up, you just start your turn with a big attack. You can discard one of their 4/4/0s, and it's possible that they wanted to play it, and they will not be able to, and even though they had go again because it's gone. So I feel that gone in a flash. So it feels like it could be a Crown of Providence in some of matchups, but just the both possibility of it happening is pretty high, even though we only have like 11 non-attacks most of the time. That's why I play Sizzles, two copies of Sizzle in the main board, just to have some more non-attacks that I can play, and block with if I would ever want to trigger face Purgatory. And just as I said, scalding flashback, like your opponent having to respect it, kind of thing, because if they don't, they can get punished so hard that you just will win the game on the spot.
I imagine it's hard to know in the moment how often it got that implied value of it messing up their turn by it just existing on the table. But in actualized value, how often do you think you actually used it for its intended effect during the calling? Like, did that come up frequently, or did it come up enough that it was worth the inclusion?
I think it came up like every 2 or 3 games. I didn't play against any of the brutes I wanted to face off against.
That's surprising. That was like the second most popular deck, right?
Yeah, but I just didn't meet them, or maybe I played against one KO. But if
Side tangent, I'm so surprised Brute was that popular. That's some heavy cope.
well, in the field full of enigmas and auroras, yeah.
That ain't it. That ain't it. Maybe sell off your Brute cards. This is now a Fab Finance podcast. Get rid of your scabs. No more rolling dice. I'm sick of it.
Especially scab skins. Yeah, just sell them off. Send them back to the ELSS. Yeah. So it was every 2 to 3 games. I think I triggered it 5 or 6 times during these like 13 rounds. I played against, but it was because of the matchups I faced off against. I played against 2 counter blessing decks, so it's not like you will trigger it ever into that matchup that they will just constantly block you.
Do you think you would have liked a different hat in the sideboard for those matchups, or does it not matter? I mean, I guess we can jump into that. Like, how's your fatigue matchup?
Yeah, my fatigue matchup was really well until people discovered Amulet of Echoes to have against Aurora, because it counters both your Gone in a Flash setup and your double or triple Arc Lightning Flicker Wisp setup. So
that's smart.
After they started playing that card from like 80 to 90% win rate, it just jumped down to like 30%, 20-30%, because it's so hard to play around it. I didn't have time to prepare for that like disruption piece. I only had in mind how to try to set up the stack, but it doesn't always work. So that's why I lost in top 8. I just wasn't prepared to face off against. I just didn't have enough cards to be prepared for the Amulet of Echoes, and just the game didn't go as well. I didn't have any good Gone in a Flash turn. I couldn't pitch my instants. Whenever I played Arc Lightning, Flicker Wisp, they already had the Amulet of Echoes in, so that's something to think about if anyone would want to try the deck, to bring in more cards. Yeah, and
transcend
it's a good,
off of it, right?
Yeah, good time to have some more cards against counter blessings in. And if you just prepare for the deck, it's good. But the issue with the counter blessing deck in the Swiss part is that you need to scout if your opponent will be playing counter blessings or will be just the standard build of the deck. That's a big issue.
Was that an issue, you think? Tournament logistically, did you think that was like a net negative?
I believe so, because like for the first 3 or 4 rounds, one of my friends was going around the tables and registering if anyone is playing counter blessings or not. So that's a huge win for people that have a lot of teammates, and if someone finishes up round quickly, they can just go scout around. And for someone that is a solo player or just have a smaller group of people or is just playing a slower deck, it's kind of impossible to prepare for it. And that's why I didn't bring in any Poison the Wells, because I just believe that it will be not possible until like top 8 or the last rounds of day 2 to know exactly what you will be facing off against, and bringing Poison the Well against the standard Miragai Enigma or against Boost Dash is just a death wish, and you find yourself with a blue instant that does nothing, and you would want to play it as a lightning card or block with it, and it will be impossible to do that.
That's just making me think back to Yu-Gi-Oh back in the day during this is some boomer shit right here. During the Infernity format where people were setting monsters in their spell and trap card zone to they were cheating. It was if you don't know how this deck works, it's if you play Magic, it was a Hellbent deck. So
Okay.
it only operated if you had no cards in hand. So you would like play a monster and then set your whole hand and then start going off because you have no cards in hand. Uh, so one of the things people did cheating in the format was they would start setting their monsters in the spell and trap card zone, and if they let's say you did something to destroy that specific card set, they would just scoop the game in response to make it so that you didn't know they were cheating. So it was a thing back then to have people like have friends watching opponents sometimes to be like, hey, let me know if my opponent's cheating. And it was just like, now that's a whole different issue of you have someone watching your opponents, and then that leads to more cheating potentially, which let's not get into that. But this is just reminding me of that, of this just like extra layer of now I need to tag team all of my opponents because I need someone to scout ahead of time. This is, I think, not quite as extreme as the Infernity example, but it's just reminding me of that.
Yeah, it's something I think people like. The issue with counter blessing isn't just the fact that you are not able to counter it. There are many cards that counter it, and many classes have interaction with it. But the issue is if you don't know if they're playing it or not, and it's a generic that you can play in every deck in the format, it's just sometimes not possible for you to sideboard properly, or if you just flip a coin and it's not and bring it in or not bring it in, and it's the opposite of the deck, you're just screwed. And that's the biggest issue with the card I have.
Speaking of countering it, there's a video up on the channel about that. If you, the viewer, don't know how to beat that deck, go check it out over here.
Great video.
So what's your general game plan into the fatigue decks? It's set up a big stack of your Arc Lightnings.
Yeah, that was my general strategy into the fatigue. Just pitching at least 2 of your Arc Lightnings and at least 2 of your Flicker Wisps, having and before you will draw your hand of Flicker Wisps and Arc Lightnings, having Channel Lightning Valley on the board, so that whenever you start, and having Tunic up, so whenever you start with your big turn, you have an additional card from the Channel Lightning Valley. You will have a Tunic counter to swing your Starfall for free if there's no blue in that hand, or just to have a blue to pitch to Grasp and take the Tunic counter and give Go Again from the Aurora's ability during that turn. And it was working perfectly fine until you got hit by the Amulet of Echoes. So against the general fatigue decks, not counter blessings especially, it works really well. Also, you can just pitch your Sigils of Solace or Electrostatic Discharges, and before you draw your hand of all the instants, have gone in a flash in Arsenal, or the other way around. You know the drill. And when you draw your hand, you just take the Tunic counter, pop the Lightning Greaves, and go Gone in a Flash, instant Gone in a Flash, instant Gone in a Flash, instant, and you can play the same Gone in a Flash 5 to 6 times.
Deceased
During
target
that
opponent.
Turn. Yeah. And either deal more damage with Discharge or just gain some life with Sigil of Solace. But mostly against fatigue, you just want to generate as much value with the cards you have as possible, and it basically makes any of your instants a 7 value card.
So were you still playing the sigils into the fatigue decks?
Yeah, I'm playing it. I was only cutting it against Florian because I was sure that he will have the Reaping Blade. But other than that, it's just a really good deck. It's just a really good card overall because it allows to use your full hand much easier, even if you don't have the embodiment of lightning. It allows to trigger opponent into maybe allowing you to hit with a snatch if you have one card in hand, or just bluffing the lightning press if it's something that you would need in that turn. Maybe your opponent will make a mistake. It's similar to how Oldhim and Bravo were playing Sigil of Solace while having pummels in their deck. You just sometimes can catch your opponent off guard. You can also make them play CNC into you while having Sigil of Solace in Arsenal. Just bait them out that you have some really good card that you don't want to play until you find your combo pieces, and they'll think, oh, it must be the Arc Lightning or the Flicker Wisp. So now is the time to try to disrupt them with the Command and Conquer, and it's just a Sigil of Solace, and they just wasted their turn basically attacking you for 6.
Yeah, who needs Crown of Providence? You have such good counterplay to that.
Yeah, exactly. So many good instances that you don't mind playing during your opponent's turn. And you have many free blocks, and you have a lot of equipment blocks, so it's not that like that's why I also didn't want Crown of Providence, because it didn't feel like you would ever need it, because you have you block well, and you have a lot of ways to avoid the command's effect. So why waste a sideboard slot to not have face Purgatory in?
And then jumping back a couple thoughts, the Lightning Greaves, we were talking about how it had the AB. One nice thing too is it seems like you really get to free roll a really good package into the Wizards. You got the free AB there. You already wanted to play this in some matchups, I imagine, for the blocking value on this, and then now you've got AB3, and then we also have the Spell Void package on top.
Yes. It did come up once because I played against one Kano, but I was just basically running the Addict Carapace, Lightning Greaves, and Shock Charmers into all the other wizards, and face Purgatory because they all both Verdance and Osilio play attack actions. And I mostly put in Spellfray Tiara because I had it from my Aurora First Strike deck that I had to purchase for some of the cards. And I just was losing my mind on the last slot, and my friend told me that I don't have any other hat against Kano, so I just might as well put in Spellfray Tiara. I played against one Kano, and his Wildfire that was coming for 7 just dealt 1 damage, and yeah, he was pretty sad about that.
Do you think after the fact with the evolution of the fatigue decks playing the amulets, would you want to change this to be like the gold hat to like maybe have a bigger go off round into them?
Yeah, I think it's possible, or just put in some recursion, like even remembrance maybe, because it's another instant you can go in the flash bounce back with. So there are many ways to tackle it. I am not sure about what will be the best way to deal with Counter Blessing together with Amulet of Echoes, but the combo package, or just the recursion of having a single remembrance that you can still use during the game to generate some more value with it than any other deck would normally do.
Were you getting close to decking them out?
It's, yeah, whenever I went against the Counter Blessing Dash E, we were always going down to like 3, 4, or 5 cards in the deck, and against Enigma they were just left with Cheese and the Heart of Fiendal. So it's entirely possible to go down to the last cards of the deck, and and if at that point you can shuffle back in like any of your good cards or just Arc Lightning and Flicker Wisp, it's just easy to push the just to finish them off with the big arcane chunks that they will not be able to block because they will always run AB1 against you only.
Oh, actually, one card I had a question on, Electrify. Do you want to talk about that? This is not a card I've seen very many people play. Plunder Run at home.
Well, some people were jokingly saying that I was playing it because I have the promo Electrifies.
Were they
That's
wrong?
not true. That's not true, of course. That's not true. For starters, it's a non-attack action, so it pairs well with Face Purgatory. It's a lightning blue card, and whenever you play Channel Lightning Valley, you want to keep it up, so you want lightning blue cards. And I wasn't so high on both Blinks and Sigils of Lightning because they are instants, they don't block. And as we said at the start, I don't want my decks to be hyper aggressive. I want to be able to block just to slow down the game. And that's a card that blocks and it has some potential to be a great setup card in your arsenal. So that's why it's in here. It also has small added benefit of having go again and drawing a card, so you can use it during your Arc Lightning turn to for 1 mana deal 2 damage. It's a great setup on turn 0 if you drew full blue hand, because you will actually use it later on. It activates your sword. It deals that 1 damage that might matter in the end. So it's a really flexible choice that also blocks and that also works well with Face Purgatory. And because I wanted to play Face Purgatory into every deck, that was the reason I had it in.
So it sounds like most of the time it's a blue lightning non-attack block 2. How often were you actually playing it? Like, did this like come up that you like casted this during the event, or?
Yeah, I had it especially against slower decks, or if I just needed to play something on turn 0, not let my opponents cycle their hand, and having played lightning card, be able to create an embodiment of lightning with the ability of Aurora. Just having it as a random draw from the top of my deck whenever I played E-Strike was really good. So overall, really flexible, good card.
Speaking of jumping around, we forgot to mention this. We're just like, oh no, like make sure you keep me on track next time. I'm like, brother, every single video I do like this, we jump around, and I don't think anyone cares. If we have any carers in the chat, if there's anyone that cares about us jumping around, let me actually legitimately let me know in the comments, because like I don't care about that. I think it's like the natural flow of these things. It's like, whoa, as we were just joking before hitting record again, well, we're talking about the boots, so we just have to talk about the instance to go with it. Well, we're going to talk about the instance, we have to talk about Gone in a Flash. And we're going to talk about Gone in a Flash, we have to talk about the nombos with it. I think that's the natural flow of these. Let me know in the comments below if you don't like that. And while you're in the comments, the deck list is going to be in the description. And on the Patreon, I'm going to have the deck list with sideboard game plans and everything. So check that out. I need that bag. All right, Bartosz, let's talk about your maybe board. You're like, oh, we didn't talk about this.
Well, it happened so fast. Okay. As for the maybe board, as I mentioned in the upcoming metagame of Dio being like probably tier 0 or tier 1 deck, that you will have to respect, both Erase Phase and the Weakest Links are the way to tackle her, along with Warmonger's Diplomacy.
Warmongers is so good into her. Holy, those processors? No.
Yeah, I have a small beef with Warmonger's Diplomacy because I just hate that card. I don't know how to play it properly. I don't like the design. It just, whenever I play Chain in Living Legend and someone high rolls it out in the turn 6 that I had to take 10 damage from the Blood Debt and just waste my card on playing a Belittle for free and doing nothing, or just Demigon for 2 because I drew a yellow one.
My favorite is the Warmongers plus ALS. Nice time snap potion. Shake my hand. GG.
So it probably should be in. I might break my promise of never playing it and just include it in because of Dia. But if you are a Warmonger's Diplomacy hater like me, Sing Belows are also really good against Dia because it covers the breakpoint and allows you to filter some of your instants. So that's something you could do.
Yeah, we were
As
talking
for
about
the
a pre-show where I was like, oh, like I could see the Electrify being that theoretically. Because if we're just playing this as a blue block non-attack for your hat, you're trading off the lightning aspect for one more defense, which does matter it not being a lightning card. Like you do have stuff that cares about that, so it's understandable not doing that. But this, I think, is going to be the single best Warmongers meta we've ever seen. Like, we got Dash, we've got all these Rune Blades, Azalea's a pretty reasonable deck. It seems ridiculously good.
Yeah, it should come up pretty often in the games that you will just play Warmonger's Diplomacy and time walk your opponent, or at least just diminish their turn by half.
It means they can't cast their Amulet of Echoes. Huge.
That's what I was missing.
Dum dum.
Dumb. As for the Amulet of Echoes deck, there's Poison the Well. But the issue with that card is, as I mentioned, that you are not always sure that you are playing against Counter Blessing deck. So it's like day 2 top 8, or after scouting the whole room with your teammates card that you can run. At worst case scenario, you can bounce Gone in a Flash with it, I guess, but that's not the best use for that card. Also, from what I saw, all the Counter Blessing decks are playing Sigil of Solace anyway, so they can just counter your Poison Devil with Sigil of Solace if they are scared of you having it in, or if you just showed it by pitching it early in the game. So it's not the perfect counter. Probably it's just better to kill them with enough damage that just overcomes their ability to heal up. So I think just Remembrance would be better in that slot if you would want to have something against Counter Blessing deck, to just be able to combo second time with Arc Lightning Flicker Wisp.
What do you think about like a Gravekeeping or two? Let me snipe your first, count your blessings. Even if they're not on that strategy, like you guessed wrong, they're not that. It's still just a 1 for 5. Like it's still just efficient attack that you can throw.
Yeah, that's probably something better to play in, because it's still, as you said, it's still 5 for 1. You can use Tunic Counter to play it even during your turn with Embodiment of Lightning, or if you just pitch the blue to swing the Starfall. So Gravekeeping is an option for sure. Yeah, I think it probably would be the best option. So that's something to have in mind while preparing for the ProQuest or Osaka.
If you don't understand how that works, viewer, basically if you snipe account your blessings out of their grave, it's going to be the value of the Gravekeeping, so 5, plus the value of life they would have gained by not having that in their graveyard for every count your blessings left in the deck. So let's say you snipe their first one, it's worth 8 life? 7 life? 8 life? Yeah.
7 or 8, yeah, a lot of life.
But it's basically however many count your blessings are left in their deck, it's worth that much value. So like you get their third one, well, there's still 6 more count your blessings left in their deck. So it's going to be worth an extra 6 value from just that future life gain that you're preventing.
Yeah, that's a good card. Yeah, that's another option. Probably much better option than Poison the Well, because of it just being able to, you can at least block for 2 with it. It's not the worst, and with Poison the Well, it's not easy to use it well. And as for the other cards, speaking of blues, you could, if you are scared of new You could play snags in. I don't believe they are needed if you have Sync Bellows on top of Sigils of Suffering. It's not like with Zen that you got, if one of your cards got taken from your hand, you just scramble, and the best you can do is Kakara into 5. Here, your best hands are most often just 2 or 3 card hands, not the 5 card hands, because you could just not have enough go against in the deck, in your hand, to just use your whole hand effectively.
Yeah, it's pretty
So
interesting because like against new or new versus aggro deck, this is like technically a multiplicative scaling damage deck. Like your damage does go up with the more cards that you have because it starts like, oh, now I have enough that I can force through the draw trigger of my channel, for example. Or, oh, I have more cards, therefore more go against my arc lightning. So my damage does scale up with more cards. But oh man, you took 2 cards from me. Whatever, 0 for 4, 0 for 4. It's not like Zen where it's like, oh, you took 2 cards from me. 2 card 4. It's like your hands are still very reasonable.
Yeah, you scale really well, but your small hands are still insanely efficient. As for the other interesting blues, you have Arcanic Shockwaves that Elibert played in her list, and I took an inspiration and played one in my, because it's another block-free good attack that you can bounce with Somersault, and it also has some added benefit of being able to combo with your just to weave into your Arc Lighting Flicker Wisp turn on your second cycle, and it being buffed up by Flicker Wisp also. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah,
And
because it's probably
Sigil of
hard to get the red ones back in the deck, I imagine. Like, you're not trying to pitch this.
Yeah. It's not lightning, so we'll not keep up the value with it. You want to play it because it's 5/4/0, and the blue one is perfect at that. Trip the Light Fantastic is something I didn't try, but I like the idea of, because you can. It's a blue that you can also discard to prevent some reactions from your opponent, or even against wizards to go even more defensive. If you have a blue and Trip the Light Fantastic, it's still a lightning, so you can fuse with it or keep the valley up. It blocks too, so it's a really big downside, but something to try if you have a really wizard heavy meta game in your area. Or
Would it just be like Kano that would make you want to play this, or also Verdance?
Verdance also, because she's running the if she's running the amp package and the Etherweave, I believe was the Ethertide. Ethertide, you can both AB3 and discard this when you go to your second cycle and just block it all out. If she would like to go really heavy on the arcane damage during the game. And it's also good against Azalea, because you can effectively use another card to block during your turn if she dominates you.
Speaking of Azalea, how's that matchup? Because typically red in the ledger deck is pretty good into aggro decks that block poorly, but I imagine you have some counterplay to that.
Well, here it's interesting because you still block well. So if she doesn't dominate an arrow, it's sometimes easy to block out the big arrow and still hit her for 4 with one of your cards that you have left. But this deck, because it has so many instants, is basically bulletproof of it's like
You're red proof.
It's not how do you say it?
I was just gonna say you're red proof. You're like red and ledger proof.
Yeah, red proof. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't get hit as hard as other aggro decks with red in the ledger, because sometimes I got ledgered and I just block with one of my 3 blocks, and I played Electrostatic Discharge, random 4/4/0, and lightning pressed it. And even though I had red in the ledger with inertia, hit. It did nothing basically. So that's why I chose to not run Warmonger's Diplomacy also, even though the main reason was that I hate it, but the other reason was that this deck functions really well even without it against Azalea, because you have so many ways to go around her on hits. And also you have a lot of block on equipment, so you can just use it whenever you feel like it. If you have a good hand, you just use your whole equipment and block down hits and go off and just finish them off with some random arcane pings that she doesn't block well.
And then last card to talk about here would be the Sigil of Lightning. You briefly
The
mentioned
lightning,
it earlier when we were talking about the Electrifies.
yeah, it doesn't block. It's much better in the redliner builds. And I played blinks instead of it because it often felt like I would rather have the action point now. If I have two blues in my hand, I will always just pitch it, and if I have the second one, I just would rather have blink for Dagon in a flash interaction, or just to play two of my 4/4/0s that turn.
So we already kind of touched on it a bit with the amulet, but was there any other like weaknesses of the deck that you noticed, or you just know are things that think people could exploit? And if so, are there any ways that you think are some ways to like counter the counter? Like how would you attack this if you were going against this in the ProQuest season?
Well, for sure, even if you play much more defensive version like mine, you still have a lot of instants that don't block. So having attacks with on hits always helps to just diminish Aurora's turn, or just force her to block with cards. So CNCs work well, weakest links work well. You have some instants that you can play in response to just cover for the fact that they are instants and they would be discarded. But in
Do you
case
think
of
a race face is good into your build?
I don't think so. I don't think it's any good into any of the builds, because it works on fuse cards. It works on the Starfall, and it works on the
Hero power,
on the
fuse,
hero power fuse,
flow
the Channel
counter.
Lightning Valley. But sometimes you just have even, but it doesn't work if you have the Embodiment of Lightning on the board. You can just still play your turn of 4 into 4, or 4 into Electrostatic Discharge into 7 into 4/4/0 that's buffed and Lightning Press. You didn't need you didn't need the lightning part on that card for them to function.
Mm-hmm.
So a race phase diminishes some of your value for sure. It just just blocks some of the interactions in the deck. But even the Arc Lightning, like I think the best, or one of the best cards you have, doesn't specify that.
It says lightning in the name.
Yeah, it has lightning in the name, it has lightning in the text box, but it gives go again to any attack, any action you will take next. So
if I hit you with a race face, it's just arc.
Well, still works really well. You don't need the lightning part.
So on hits are very good into you. Any others other than Weakest and CNC that you think are like goods, either at generic or class ones that you think people should be playing more of right now? Like any classes that like maybe are underrated right now?
I think defensive reactions are really good, like or just cards that block for 4 and having a lot of equipment just to make your Aurora opponent have to work for their Channel Lightning Valley draw. Have some ways to counter the Lightning Press that they would play on any of the attacks with on hit, and just having ways to block well the on hits that she presents, while having some kind of disruption. This deck can get stuck, so also just sometimes just blocking with your whole hand and having them their 5-card hand might.
What do you mean by stuck?
if they not every card has a. That's why people were playing Snapdragon Scalers, because sometimes you will not draw any of your go against, or they are conditional go against, and you didn't have the embodiment of lightning from the previous turn. So your turn might just end up being pitch 2 cards to Runechant and attack for 4. Something that Briar was doing pretty often back in the days. So sometimes if your hand isn't really good and you feel that you saw many of their instants played, many of their go against just gone, if you are on the backbone and you need something to try to squeeze out the game, you can just block with your full hand and don't let them get any value from their cards because they get stuck. It's not something that will happen really often, but it's something to keep in mind.
It's an out to play towards.
Yes.
So any changes that you would have made to the deck after the event?
I think I would cut on some of the instants because sometimes you can just get 3 or 4 instant hand, and if you didn't arsenal an attack action in a previous turn, you just might do nothing, and you are both not able to block and not able to attack them back. So you just basically wasted the whole turn cycle to refill your hand again.
You get like a Runeblade hand, but it's with instants instead of non-attacks.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe cutting one of the lightning presses, maybe cutting one of the other instants, like the somersault. Somersault is something we didn't mention, but it's like insane card because you can both use it offensively and defensively. If you draw 2 of your 3 blocks, you can just block for 6 with it, and it's like insane. I don't think there's a card that blocks 6 so easily.
Yeah,
you can use it.
Given your build too, where you're trying to play this more mid-rangey approach, it does look like your list blocks a little bit better in its attack base. So like, it's very easy for you to get 6 value out of it. It looks like, or at least 5.
At least 5. I always consider at least 5. And offensively, you can use it to just bounce back the best card you attack with during your turn, and activate some of the effects on the cards. Like it works really well with the flittering charge that's in the sideboard, because flittering charge wants you to play an instant card on this chain link for it to get go again. So you basically have 2 card aid with it because you play flittering charge. In reactions, you play somersault, give it go again, get it back at the end of the chain link, and attack with it again. Maybe swing the Starfall in between. So that's something to have to have in mind while building the deck, is to maybe just play and go up and down on instants to make it work better. Maybe add in some more non-attacks to the deck so that you can trigger Face Purgatory even more often. But it basically depends on the metagame. Sigil is insane card, even though it's only +3 for 0, and it might not Sigil, not the Sigil of Souls.
Oh, sorry.
Sigil, yeah. It might not look like much because it's just an emblem, but it's an emblem that both works on your weapon and activates it. So it's an additional starter that is also a non-attack action, so it's easier to play it. That works with Face Purgatory, and at worst, it's just another discharge or lightning press that you play before one of your attacks, just to have a 2-card 7.
God, what was the name of the new ball lightning they made?
Fry.
Yeah, it's a fry that still blocks for 2.
Yeah, and is a non-attack for the Face Purgatory, so everything you want.
Except for 1 damage in every instance of damage that you deal this turn.
we can't have it all. It's just what I said. Figure out how to beat Amulet of Echoes and maybe do some mix and matching on the instance. And other than that, I think the deck is really good. Maybe add some Erase Face or Weakest Link against not the mirror, but to have it against Dio, that will come up in the middle of the ProQuest season with her new cards from the Armory deck. That might be something to consider. And
speaking of Dio, if you liked this video, I got an interview with Mara coming up that's very similar to this, where we're going to be talking about the upgrades that Dash is getting with the Armory deck. That'll be I'll have a link somewhere up here for when that's out. It's going to be after this video, though.
So that's something that I would consider, and I wouldn't be surprised if I take Aurora for the World Championship in Osaka. That is my closing thought.
Alrighty. Well, where can people find you?
So I'm on Twitter with, I just need to double check, but it's, I believe, underscore Inazumi, not the underscore, it's Inazumi TCG.
I'll have a thing on under your name also.
Yeah, we'll link it somewhere down there. I don't post pretty often because I'm pretty bad at social media, but I will sometimes say that I want something or that something was fun. And yeah, I happen to be on the Pheano's channels from time to time, so maybe you'll see me back there someday.
Awesome.
We'll see.
Socials and deck list will be in the description below. If you wanted to see another interview I have with Bartosz and his brother, I also have that video where we talk about the Katsu deck that they brought to, what was that, Baltimore? Was that Baltimore?
Yeah, that was Baltimore.
That was a really interesting way to tackle the Lexi meta. I really like that deck. I literally couldn't take a game off of you guys when we were practicing. If you guys enjoyed this video, please subscribe and check out the Patreon to help support more great content like this. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you.
See you.